Hey everyone, AquaTwist here. A while ago, I made a video talking about the current state of game preservation and how AAA companies aren't really doing the best job in terms of preserving their history and old hardware and re-releasing the old classic titles. And there are a few museums that are currently doing that, like the State of Play in Rochester, New York and Atari 50, but there is one I didn't mention in that video that I think is the greatest effort in video game preservation that I have ever seen. The National Videogame Museum in Frisco, Texas. As of this video, it's only 9 years old and it's not even a decade old, yet it has so many cool knickknacks and rare oddities and all these awesome things that I've loved learning about my whole life, like the Nintendo 64 DD. So while I was there, I was thinking, wait, why am I the only person who has to see this? So I decided to get a bunch of footage and pictures to show you all and be like, hey, this is what video game preservation looks like and how well it can be done. And I'm going to talk about my experience at each of the exhibits. So without further ado, let's begin. To start, the first thing you see right when you walk into the museum is this giant exhibit dedicated to Pong, one of the very first video games. So here you got all these cool like clones dedicated to Pong that different companies were trying to make to compete with each other, including Atari, Nintendo, with the game console 15. That's pretty cool. Next up, you have this little arcade machine of the original Pong. I've seen it before in Fun Spot, but it's cool seeing it again. Now you got a couple variations. And here you get the largest Pong exhibit ever, which that's pretty cool seeing it. Another Pong variation. Next up, right behind it is all these consoles just lined up. The history from all the way back to the Odyssey in 1972, all the way up until the modern consoles. I'm surprised they didn't have the Xbox Series X or PS5, but maybe they're considered too new. Regardless, it's cool seeing this in person. So here are some images of some of the modern consoles like the PS4 and Xbox One. And here's the Nintendo Switch and Wii U. And here's a statue of the characters from the museum. I have a magnet and keychain of this, which is pretty cool. We got Mario, Mega Man, Donkey Kong, Sonic, Pikachu, and Pac-Man. Next up, we got the third-party exhibit. Just a bunch of like random like advertisements up on the wall, which is pretty nice. Just all these random like PC games, rare Xbox things, a Sega Dreamcast dev kit, and Nintendo 64 dev cart. Holy crap, that's huge. Here's a better look at some of the Atari games, Ghostbusters and stuff like that. It's really impressive seeing this in person once again. More random interesting accessories and knickknacks. You got Mario Bros. I think that's PC? Not sure. You got Zork. Zork's a classic, even though I never really played it. It's not since college. So here's a giant wall of controllers. This is awesome. Controllers are one of my favorite things about games, and I always love seeing the history of all the controllers. Here they had a Typing of the Dead setup, Beat Mania, and the Activator, which is nice. Here's a better look at some of the random accessories, the iconic Power Glove, and stuff like that. The Power Pad, the Dreamcast fishing rod, the jogger. Lots of cool stuff. And once again, here's another look at the controllers, in case you missed it. Alright, so next up is portable. So they had this huge, like, little corner dedicated to all the handheld releases. They had some rare Game Boys I never heard of, like the Barbie Edition GameBoy and the Game Boy Light. All really impressive. I never owned, like, a Game Boy myself, but it's really cool seeing the variations. But anyway, more Game Boy Advances. You got the e-reader card, the GBA SP, the PSP from Sony, and the PlayStation Portable. Got the Nintendo 3DS and DS Classics, and the failed ones I never heard of, like Game 8. So they tried to recreate like a 1980s electronics store of what it would look like when video games had the crash in 1983. So you got like E.T. hanging up there, old registers and stuff like that. And in the middle, they just had these random PCs. I mean, I don't really know much about them, but it was interesting seeing them nonetheless. So they had this little corner by the bathrooms for some reason. I don't know why it's right there. But anyway, a huge thing to Dragon's Lair. I never really played it, but I always found it fascinating with Don Bluth working on it. Cool little arcade. I love the ESRB like restroom sign. That's a nice touch. Little dragon on the wall too. So they had this little like exhibit. I don't know if it's permanent or if it's just for the duration of when I went, but it was dedicated to Native American representation in video games, which that's fascinating. I'll have to check out Turok. I heard a lot of good things about it. I love Doom and Quake, and it seems to be a similar game. Correct me if I'm wrong. Next up, they have a 30th anniversary exhibit dedicated to the original Mario movie. No, not the animated one, but the original, and that's pretty cool to see. All the merchandise, like a Blu-ray, DVD, VHS, a hat. Some of the props from the original movie, which is cool. Nice little artwork, celebrating 30 years. And here's another photo of some of the props from the movie, which is pretty cool, like the Super Scope. So this is really fascinating. These are all like just rare prototypes and dev kits of games when companies used to do this a lot, which is really fascinating to me. So one thing that you'll probably see in a second is Jet Set Radio on the N64. Like what? I don't know if that's like a sticker. Like I never heard that game was actually going to come out on the N64 before it was released on the Dreamcast. Let's just seeing that blew my mind. Like, wow. I didn't recognize a lot of these, but that definitely caught my eye. Here's some more over here. Another giant Nintendo 64 cart. Half-Life from Dreamcast. I don't remember if I've seen this in person before, but I've known about this for a long time. The 64DD, just seeing all the accessories together is just mind-boggling. I don't want to imagine how much it is worth now, because wow, that is just incredible to see. Interesting like board games and stuff like that, based on games. Here's a collection of various like collectible items and rare games, but also some of the iconic ones, like of course, Ocarina of Time and Panzer Dragoon Saga, from all these different systems. All these little standees from stores. I know Maximilian Dude made a video about that recently. Really cool stuff. Old Atari. So this is more of it. We got Jet Set Radio once again. Old Atari. Little things. Mario merch for some reason. There's a lot of Mario merch. I don't know why. I think we had like a press kit with the gun in it. All these rare console variations like the Hello Kitty Dreamcast and Nintendo cereal is just, that's really cool. Panasonic GameCube. Oh, I've only seen it a few times, but it's really fascinating. Like the boomerang shaped controllers, 3DO. It's like, you gotta pause this video and really take a look at like all these different artifacts, like Earthbound and the power controls. Like, oh my goodness. Here's a better photo of like all the Nintendo 64 DD accessories and that stuff, and the Hello Kitty Dreamcast. Next up, we have these interesting, like, artifacts and stuff like that. So we got Poppin' Music, which I played at the arcade before, which is really fun. I didn't know I had a console release. A nice little rhythm game, Metal Gear Solid, House of the Dead. All these interesting accessories, once again, Dreamcast. Injustice 2 banner. More GameCube stuff. PlayStation and Dreamcast. They have a lot of Dreamcast stuff here, I noticed. Neo Geo. And here's a photo of one of the original, like, creators of video games himself. And here's a mural. So they had this, like, free play area of various consoles, and you could just play it, and this was the mural behind it. It was really fascinating seeing, like, this. It was really well done. Credit to the original artists. It's just really cool seeing this evolution. They also have statues of Master Chief and Lord Dracula, I think, from Castlevania. Really nice to see in person. Here's another interesting corner. So they had this like little arcade, and right before that they had a couple kiosks. I have an image of that later. But they also have all these nice like vintage posters. Another ESRB inspired sign. So yeah, so I didn't get much footage of the arcade because unfortunately the arcade was very crowded. But I was with someone when I went, and we got to play pole position. They loved the game. They were trying to beat the time. Unfortunately, they didn't. But yeah, they had this really cool arcade. You had like $1 worth of tokens included with your museum entrance ticket. And you got to actually play the games, which was pretty cool. And more footage of the arcade. I did the best I could because everyone was like everywhere, but they had like Punch-Out and Pac-Man, Galaga. Lots of cool stuff. Joust, you know, classic. I didn't even know they had a Michael Jackson Moonwalker arcade machine. I thought it was consoles only. Here's a better image of the kiosk I was talking about earlier. They had the Atari Jaguar, Sega Dreamcast. Awesome vintage shirts. Virtual reality. Like, I didn't get video footage of the exhibit, but they had the Quest, but that wasn't working. And here we are at the end of the journey. So that was an incredible museum, and they had all these consoles plated in gold, and little silhouettes of each of these individual characters and stuff like that. This is definitely the best museum I've been to in my entire life, so if you're able to go, I highly recommend it. So let me know what you think.